Hello and welcome to FRAMOS' Quick Clips. This particular video we're going to talk about Intel RealSense cameras and how you can calibrate them in the field after you've received them. They do come properly calibrated out of the gate, but sometimes you need to adjust that calibration for your particular working distances, or if you find the calibration may not be ideal. So what we're going to do is we're going to point you to the tools that you'll need and how to use them, and then we'll walk you through the various different steps so that you can perform this action on your own. So stay tuned and we'll show you everything you need to know. So the first step in performing this calibration is to make sure you have the right software and the calibration charts. So when we go to this website here, realsense.intel.com, if you go to the SDK and download section, you'll see this web page. From there, we can then pick the calibration target PDF that's there and download that. So one of the things we need to do with the calibration chart we just downloaded is print it. We need to make sure we print it with no scaling. Once we have it printed, we can then cut it out and glue it to a nice flat surface so that we can get a nice clear image of it. So that's all said here in this document, but I just wanted to highlight that to be specific. So we want to make sure that there's no scaling because we want to get the best calibration possible, and then glue that to a nice flat surface so we get a nice uniform pattern that can be easily recognized by the Intel RealSense camera. So as you can see, by clicking on the calibration tools, it brings us to this new website. There's two different links here. What we want is the calibration API. So we're going to download that particular one. We don't need the other one right now. We just need the calibration API. So we're going to download that to our desktop, and then we can run from there. So as you can see, I've downloaded the file, and we're now going to drag that onto my desktop so you can see it, and then we'll be able to run it from here. So before I start, I want to make sure that I have a camera connected. So I'm going to open up my device manager, and I'm going to scroll down to cameras. And as you can see, we have two entries for the camera, one for the depth modules and one for the RGB. So we're all good here. So now we're ready to install the software. So now we're ready to install the software. As you can see, I have an older version on my computer, so we'll uninstall that. And we'll walk through the steps that are being provided. It should be the default settings and walk us all the way through to the end. So now that we've installed it, we have to open up a Windows Explorer window in order to get access to it. So it's downloaded to your standard C drive. So as you can see here, we'll scroll to my C drive, and then I'll open up the calibration API directory and go into the bin folder. And as you can see, we have two different versions here. We have a command line option, so if you ever want to do some scripting-based calibration, you can do that using the command line version. But we're going to open up the full GUI-based version to make things a little easier for us. So here we go. Open up that window, and now we're just going to walk through that. So as you can see, it's found the camera, everything looks good, there's no errors complaining about the camera speeds. We're connected well through our USB 3 ports, and now we're just going to change some settings. For our situation, we're not going to go back and have the auto exposure set, so I'm going to turn that off. So one of the reasons for disabling the auto exposure is that oftentimes it'll start trying to control the exposure just before it starts, and sometimes it can be so off that it can make it more difficult for it to find the target. So sometimes I just find it's easier just to disable the auto exposure and just go with the standard lighting, and that way there it just makes the calibration and the finding of the calibration target much easier for the cameras. So as you can see, I've started a calibration. You can see what the camera's seeing. I've got my little test chart all set up and ready to go for the calibration. So once it prompts me to do so, I'll be able to show it and present it to the camera, and then I'll be able to walk through the calibration process. So I'm just going to adjust my camera here and allow it to see the chart very well. And as you can see now, it's got this blue rectangle. And I'm going to move my calibration chart to hit all the areas that are still blue, and as the calibration is then captured by the camera, that blue section will start going away, and I'm just going to walk it through the various different areas that are still blue until I've gotten rid of all that blue area. So as you can see, once we've chased away all the blue, it's now wanting to verify the calibration, so it just needs about 15 images, so we're just going to go through various different areas of the image. We don't need to go to the extremes. It doesn't really have that much of an impact on the overall calibration. It's just trying to validate that the calibration is sound. So we just need to walk around, pick a few different areas on the screen, make sure we get about a good 15 images that represents a good field of view of what the cameras are currently seeing, and that way there we get a good sense and get a great calibration, and it's all verified. So after we've done the depth calibration with the calibration chart, now it does the RGB calibration. So it's taking some RGB images, so some color images, and doing the calibration from that, so it can then use that information to overlay on the depth information. And once again, we're going to do the same thing as we did before. So now we're just going to take that same target and move it around, this time for the RGB portion of it, so it can overlay that RGB information correctly with the depth information. So we're just going to, again, go through and capture 15 targets and slowly move it around the screen. Again, just keep it in the center. Don't need to be too fancy here. Don't need to go to the extremes. It's really just to do a validation of the calibration with the RGB. So as you can see, we've successfully done all the calibration, and it's now downloaded to the camera. So the camera's now got a good valid calibration. So that's it, we're done. So we're just gonna hit OK, and we can now close this off. So this concludes our video for today. I hope it was informative and answered all your questions. Please leave a comment down below and we can improve them for next time. Otherwise, if you have any questions on the process or actually on your Intel RealSense cameras, feel free to reach out to our support group here at FRAMOS. You can do so by sending an email at support@framos.com. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch, and stay tuned. We'll have more videos coming in the near future. Thank you.